Hey everyone, today I am going to be talking to you about a topic that I am sure will be an absolute game changer for you for a number of reasons. If you're confused or overwhelmed by nutrition, especially after 40, or you've never really paid much attention to it, then this topic today is going to be life-changing for you. It's one of the biggest needle movers for my clients when we start working together, is the topic we're going to be talking about today, which, as you'll know from the title, is all about protein. And I'm going to tell you a number of things: why it's important, why you should care, what it is, how much you need, and just really dig into the really important aspects when it comes to protein. Let me know if any of this rings true to you. So at the moment you are struggling to lose body fat even though you're eating healthily. Maybe you're trying to put on muscle to quote unquote tone up, change your shape, or improve your health or longevity. You know that's important for your health and longevity. Maybe you often feel hungry when you're trying to lose weight. So if you're on a diet, you're in a calorie deficit, you feel hungry all the time, so it makes it really hard to stick to. Maybe you get cravings, especially like that 3-4 p.m. If you're really tired, you start craving sugar or caffeine. Or you lose weight sometimes with certain things that you do only to put it all back on again, which can be super frustrating. So let me know if any of those ring true to you. And then if that is the case, this topic today could be the missing piece of the puzzle for you. And like I mentioned earlier, it is protein. So today I'm going to break down what it is, why it's even more important after 40 to get enough protein, and how much you need, how to get it. Because I think some of us might have an idea that, yes, we've heard protein's important, so what do I do? Eat more chicken and eggs or something? How do I actually physically implement that? What's the actionable strategy that I can use to put more protein in my diet so that I can get the benefits of it, which I'll go through as well. Just a little bit about me. I cover different topics each week. Nutrition is obviously one of the big ones: training, sleep, recovery, supplements. But just coming back to my kind of general philosophy around these things, and for those who don't know me, I'm a qualified certified health and fitness coach. I specialize in women over 40. I've done a lot of study and qualifications and accreditations for the perimenopause, menopause population, and are really looking at what we need to do differently after 40 to what we may have done in our 20s or 30s. And I have one rule when it comes to nutrition, and I think that nutrition often has way too many rules, but my one rule is that it needs to be simple. So I get a lot of questions around nutrition from women asking whether they should fast at this age, and is that going to help them lose weight? Should they go low carb or keto or carnivore or whatever other diet is the fad of the moment? But the truth is, it does not have to be that complicated. So we don't need a bunch of rules around what we can and can't eat and when we can and can't eat if weight loss is a goal. I have no scientific basis for this next assertion, but it seems to me that the more rules there are, the more complex the rules are, the more popular the diet will be. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe we feel like that what we're currently doing, what we've done before, doesn't work, so therefore maybe we're missing this really important rule that we're not following. And there is evidence for this next part. I want you to know that the more complex things are and the harder they are to adhere to, the more likely we are to fail. And there's really good evidence around the fact that the single most important factor when it comes to any diet is adherence. So if you can stick to it, then you're more likely to succeed. They all work to some degree, because of calories in, calories out. So whether it's fasting or keto or whatever else, what they do is restrict calories enough that you end up being in a calorie deficit. People will argue till the cows come home that's not the case, and that there's all sorts of other fancy reasons why, but at the end of the day, that is what the science shows us, that it's calories in, calories out issues. So whatever helps you stick to that will help you get results. And protein is a really big, important component when it comes to being able to adhere to any sort of diet or nutrition plan. I don't really like to call them diets. They should be a lifestyle. It should be something we can follow for the rest of our lives. This is not a way we eat for 6 weeks to lose 5 kilos and then we put it all back on again. We're trying to get away from that mentality. And just to show that this works no matter where you are or what you're doing or what life throws at you. I've had clients who have recently traveled to Europe and the US who've lost weight while they were over there because they're just following the guidelines. I had another client just got back from Japan, and it's her favorite country, ate all the favorite favorite foods. She put on a measly kilo, which she lost in a matter of days coming back, just going back to that regular way of eating. So the beauty of this is that no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, no matter what life throws at you, events and holidays, etc., that you can continue to get results. Now, first up, I would say the vast majority of women, certainly the ones I start working with, are not eating enough protein. And that's why I wanted to do this live today, because it's new to a lot of us. Like, we think, okay, we're going to have a bit of an egg for breakfast, egg or two for breakfast, a ham sandwich for lunch, and a bit of chicken for dinner, and then we've covered our protein bases. But I would say 99% of women, when I start coaching them and we look at their food intake, that protein is insufficient for their needs. And I'll also explain why it becomes even more important as we get older, as we get hit over 40 and hit those perimenopause, menopause years. So just as a quick introduction, protein is a building block for our muscles, our skin, our hair, our nails. It's also important for the production of hormones and for our immune system. So it's not just important for weight loss. It's essential in the growth and repair of muscles, so really crucial if you're doing any training, which hopefully you are. It contains 4 calories per gram, which is the same as carbohydrates, which is less than fats, which contains 9 calories per gram. And also, importantly, it has the highest thermic effect of all the macronutrients, which means we need to use more energy to digest protein than we do when it comes to carbs or fat, so a lot more actually. So it gives you a bit of a temporary boost of metabolism, but it also means that we are not absorbing as many of the calories from protein as we would from, say, carbs or fats. All foods, almost all foods anyway, contain some protein. Some is minuscule, and some sources are definitely better than others, but we'll get into that in a moment. When it comes to protein, like, why should you care? Why does it matter if you have more protein? Or it can seem like a bit of a hassle. I've got to increase my protein, blah, blah, blah. But when we're losing body fat, if that's the goal, we really want to make sure we're maintaining muscle mass. And we do this 2 ways: by consuming sufficient protein and by doing some form of resistance training. The first one is even more important than the second. And then when it comes to body fat loss, more muscle gives you a higher metabolism. So when we're losing weight, we want to keep that metabolism high, because we don't want to lose a bunch of muscle along with the body fat and end up in a worse position than when we started and having to eat fewer and fewer calories just to maintain where we're at. Really want to prioritize protein in any fat loss phase. And also, once we are at a weight or a size or whatever that we are happy with, we want to make sure that we prioritize protein so we're not losing muscle as we age, because otherwise, if we don't do anything about it, if we don't keep our protein high and do some strength training, we will lose muscle as we age. That's been very well studied. The other really important thing to note about protein is it's the most filling, the most satiating of the macros. So when it comes to carbohydrates, fats, and protein, keeps you full for longer, which is really important if you're in a weight loss phase, if you're in a calorie restriction, you're trying to lose body fat, because when you're in this negative energy balance, your body's automatically going to ramp up hunger, because it's saying, we need more food. Like, you're depleting our stores of body fat here. What's going on? Give us more food. So more protein helps keep you full and really helps mitigate against those cravings. Now, I told you I would reveal why it's more important, even more important after 40, and as we are hitting that perimenopause, menopause phase, to really prioritize protein. And that is because in this cruel trick of Mother Nature, as we lose estrogen, we become less efficient at utilizing the protein that we do eat. So at the same time, as I mentioned before, we're losing muscle as we age unless we do something about it, unless we are strength training and eat enough protein. With this double whammy, it doesn't take long for our energy balance. I spoke a moment ago about calories in, calories out, to swing from a point where you're maintaining where you're at, you're cruising along happily, not putting on weight, not losing weight, to where all of a sudden you're gaining weight, even though you've changed nothing about your food intake or your training. It's really important to increase the amount of protein that we are eating so that your body can utilize it, because we're less efficient at doing that. And protein, along with strength training, is really the messenger that tells our body to build muscle and not store fat. There was a really interesting study, I'm not sure what year, but a few years ago, where they looked at a couple of groups of people, and with one group, they just fed them more protein, and the other group, they fed them more protein and did strength training. And they showed that The group that just ate more protein and didn't do any strength training still put on muscle even though they weren't doing the strength training. Obviously, if you combine both, it's going to be more effective and that's optimal, but it just goes to show that just eating more protein alone is helpful when it comes to building muscle and losing body fat, because you've got more muscle, metabolism's higher, easier to lose body fat. All right, that really covers what it is and why it's important. Let's get into how much, because I think this is the other most common question that I get when it comes to protein. Because even if you know, okay, I need to eat a bit more protein, I know that's maybe in meat and animal products. We can get into the veggie stuff later too, because it's definitely possible to get enough protein even if you're vegetarian. So let's get into how much we need. So a quote unquote sufficient amount of protein for the average sedentary person is about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight a day. If we take a 60 kilogram woman, for example, that's 48 grams of protein per day. Now, I said that is sufficient. That's just for basic living. You are not going to put on any muscle. In fact, you are very likely to lose muscle at that lower rate. And that is, as we spoke about, definitely not optimal. So what we want to look at after 40, the optimal amount for building muscle and healthy hormones and a healthy immune system and helping you lose body fat is more like double to triple that. So looking at about 1.6 to 2.2, 2.4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Or if you've got a fair bit of weight to lose or some weight to lose, you might use goal body weight. So just say, let's now take 60 kilos again, because it's easy maths, as your goal body weight. If 1.6 grams is that bare minimum to get good results, we're looking at 96 grams of protein a day. Up into 2.2 grams, it's about 132 grams of protein per day. In terms of what does that mean for food, because I do get questions of women who are confused about, does that mean I just need to eat 130 grams of chicken and I'm done? No, because foods that contain protein are not 100% protein. They've got water weight and they've got sometimes fat or carbs with them. I do have a protein cheat sheet, which I know a lot of you have already, but if this is something that you want, just an easy kind of reference sheet of what do I need to eat, how much protein do certain foods have in them, just comment cheat sheet and I will send it to you if you don't have it already. So let's give you a couple of examples. An egg, for example, that's a pretty common form of protein. I think eggs are highly overrated. I love eggs. I eat eggs most days, but I think most people think they have more protein in them than they do. There's about 7 grams of protein per egg. So if we're looking at trying to get about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal, which is really the optimal for women at this age, we need that'd be a minimum of 4 eggs. So it's not your 1 or 2 eggs for breakfast. That's not enough. You don't have to have just all eggs, of course. There's other things that have protein in them that you can add to your meal, but just as an example, 100 grams of chicken breast has about 25 grams of protein. High protein yogurts have 15 to 17 grams per little tub. Then you've got things like tofu and beans, tempeh and things like that for vegetarians and vegans. So there's definitely protein in those vegetarian foods, not as much as the animal-based foods, and that's not as bioavailable. So you just have to work a bit harder as a vegetarian, in other words, to get your protein needs, but it's still possible. Things like protein powders and protein bars are all good, easy, convenient ways to get protein into. And actually often if women are really struggling in the beginning to go from, I see average I would say about 50 grams of protein per day is probably about the average that I see for most women before they start to focus on this. And then we're looking at trying to get to a minimum of 100 grams a day, like we're doubling it. Then a protein powder can be a really low barrier for entry to getting that protein content up. If you've got a scoop of protein powder and it's got 25 to 30 grams of protein in it and you have 2 of those a day, it's pretty easy to add 50 grams of protein to your day. And you can just put that in a smoothie or your porridge or just water. It doesn't really matter how you get it in, but just an easy, non-threatening way to get it up rather than going, I have to eat 4 steaks a day. You don't have to do that. There's lots of different ways to get it. But yeah, if you want the cheat sheet, that can help you. A couple of you have already commented that already. No problem. After the live, I'll just come in and message you and send that to you. I have in the past spoken about fiber as well. I said earlier on that I feel simple nutrition is good nutrition. Like I'm really a big fan of stuff that's easy to adhere to. Now, protein is one part of that puzzle. If you add plants to that, which is your fiber content, protein and plants is like my mantra for nutrition. If you really want to simplify and just work out what are the really important things to focus on when it comes to nutrition and fat loss and muscle, maintaining muscle, etc. Protein and plants, fiber. Protein and plants is easy to remember, but plants, by that I just mean fiber, because all plants have fiber in them. So we're talking about vegetables and fruit and legumes and things like that. They're all great sources of fiber. I have done another live before on this. I also have a fiber cheat sheet, which is just really a list. You could just chat GPT it, but it's just a list of high fiber foods. But if you just think plants, it's really easy to remember. So then when I've got women starting out with my coaching, and we just really want to simplify nutrition and not overwhelm you and not be like, you can eat this food but not that food, and this time but not that time. Protein and plants. So breakfast, what have I got for breakfast? Does it have protein in it? Does it have some plants in it? Same thing for lunch, same thing for dinner, and then for your snacks, they should have either protein or plants or a combination for each of your snacks. And the other thing that fiber does, which is, the same as protein, is keeps you full for longer. So when we want to simplify fat loss, you want to stay full for less calories, then plants is a really good way of doing that. The great thing about that is it doesn't really, like if you're focusing on those two things for all your meals and snacks, doesn't leave a lot of room for other high calorie and less healthy and more calorie dense foods, because you're like, oh, I'm full from my massive veggie omelette with 3 eggs and 2 egg whites and all the veggies. I'm really full. I don't need to eat till lunchtime. Or at dinner time, you're having some chicken or tuna or steak or salmon or something along those lines. Then it means that you're not really craving those other high calorie foods. So it makes it easier to stick to that calorie deficit. As I said, simple nutrition is easy to adhere to. So that is it for us today. I've covered the what of the protein, why it's important, what it is, why it's important, and how much you need. If you have any questions around any of those things, if I've left anything out or if I'm unclear, please just comment in the comments, and I will come back in and answer those afterwards. All right, thanks everyone. See you soon. Bye.